Hi, I'm Dave Kale. Welcome to this Christian Business Insights podcast show where my goal is to provide you with practical, actionable ideas to help you create businesses and careers of excellence and at the same time multiply your influence for the kingdom. I have been a Christian in business for over 30 years, and I have personally and contractually consulted with over 500 different sales organizations. So in these podcasts, I combine the lessons that I have learned with an out-of-the-box experience and perspective on Christianity that you will find challenging. And we put that together to provide you with practical insights and ideas that you can use to live better and lead better. Welcome to the journey. Hi, this is Dave. Suppose I could share with you a strategy that would eventually produce 50% of your sales, produce higher margin sales, and do so with customers who were most loyal. Would that be something you'd be interested in? Well, I think so, and that's what I want to talk about today. This is a strategy that I have successfully implemented in lots of different clients, and it's I call it creating partners. So creating partners is one of the most powerful strategies for B2B sales organizations, and because you intentionally and methodically develop and nurture a handful of partners. Now, these are customers who are so committed to you that they form the foundation of your revenue. So let's dig into it. First of all, what's a partner? Well, a partner is a customer who has developed an exceptional degree of trust in you, relies on you, and expresses that trust and relationship by buying almost everything they can from you. Partners typically comprise about 5% of your total customer base, but they typically provide together about 50% of your total revenue. Now, in some industries, partners evolve as a natural part of the ebb and flow of sales. If you've been around a while, some customers are a better fit for your products and services than others. And some of them just naturally like doing business with you better than they do your competitors. And if all the conditions are right, a few customers will, over time, just naturally develop into partners. But what I'm talking about is understanding the impact that a partner can have on your business and then deciding to intentionally and methodically pursue them. Instead of allowing partners to evolve, you proactively create them. And that's what I'm talking about today. So how do you know when if you have one? These aren't necessarily the biggest customers, okay? They're not necessarily the biggest customers. In some industries, you know you have a partner because they sign a contract. In the last sales position that I had, I was part of a negotiating team that negotiated a, quote, systems contract, unquote, with the organization that was my biggest customer. Now, prior to this, I had a $5 million territory, and when we finally signed the contract, that particular customer contractually agreed to buy $7 million a year. That one contract with one partner more than doubled my territory. They were clearly a partner, and we knew they were a partner because they signed a contract. Now, in some cases, then the way you determine you have partners by signing a contract, but in most cases, in most industries, those cases are rare. So if you're going to create a partner, you must have a way of knowing when you have been successful. So when I'm doing this as a live seminar, I have people list the characteristics of a partner. What would a partner look like? What would they act like? And while the details vary, the principles remain the same. There are subjective factors like trust and communication, which are difficult to measure. If you could somehow measure trust, you'd find that your partners trust you more than just other good customers do. So if you're making a list of the characteristics of partners, say they trust you more than others. If you could measure communication, you'd find that your partners communicate far greater quantity and quality than the average customer. That's another item on the list. Add in relationships. You have more relationships and deeper and broader relationships with your partners than you do with others. And more of them know more of you. So that's another item on the list. So the three subjective factors are major characteristics of a partner. But there is always one objective factor which should be measurable, and that is a partner buys almost everything they can from you. Let me repeat that. A partner buys almost everything they can from you. Now, while it's difficult to have 100% of a customer's business, I've always used 75% as a threshold for defining a partner. In other words, if you have less than 75% of a customer's business, they may be a great customer, but they're not a partner. They're not a partner until they trust you with a larger commitment. Now, unlike the subjective issues of trust and communications, you can measure your penetration of the account. In order to measure that, you need to know two numbers: the potential in that client for purchases of your goods and services, that's one, and then the percentage of that potential that you have obtained. So I call the measurement of potential, it's a very specific thing in my vernacular, I call it QPC. QPC. That's an acronym, stands for Quantified Purchasing Capacity. QPC answers this question: if this account bought everything they could from me over the next 12 months, how much would that be? Imagine what could happen if you were able to capture QPC for every account. Well, that would be an eye-opening transformational initiative for a selling organization all by itself. The amount of potential when it is quantified and verified is almost always larger than almost anyone anticipated. Even seasoned sales reps routinely overestimate the percentage of a client's business they actually enjoy, typically because they underestimate the QPC. Now, when you have collected QPC for your customers, you then compare that to the total amount of business each did with you in the course of the year. So if anyone is buying 75% or more of their QPC from you, they may be a partner. By the way, this is a great exercise to do on an annual basis, is really truly collect QPC, verifiable, defendable QPC, and then compare it to the total amount of business you have, and that'll show you how much of your customer's business remains as potential. It's a great exercise. Now, another, by the way, for a complete description of measuring potential, see Chapter 5 of one of my books, 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople. Okay, Chapter 5, 11 Secrets of Time Management for Salespeople. All right, now, you've got QPC, so you know the potential. Now, there is a process, and just like with every other step in the sales process, the challenge of creating and nurturing partners is best accomplished by creating and implementing an effective process. So, here's the process. First, begin by creating a definition of what a partner is in your business. Now, be guided by the subjective and objective criteria we just mentioned, but develop a precise definition and commit it to paper. So, a partner in my business is da 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 da. Now we know what the goal is because we've created it. Then, when you have defined what a partner is, determine how many you have and who they are. You find that the most profitable of all your customers generally provide about 50% of the gross profit and almost all of the net profit. Not only are they the most profitable, they are the easiest to deal with, and they're most committed to you. In a sense, they're the backbone of your revenue stream, and they provide the revenue and profit that allows you to do almost everything else. Now, that realization can inform the entire thrust of your sales system, helping to determine, for example, which prospects to invest in, how to direct the sales team. In one sense, creating partners is the ultimate objective of every sales organization. So, back to our process. You define a partner, you've measured the impact on your business, and now you're committed to creating more. Use this rough guideline. Typically, somewhere between 3 and 5% of your customers can and should become partners. So if you have 100 customers, maybe 3 or 4 are partners or should be partners. Then create a goal for the number of partners you'd like to create each year for the next few years. Remember, it typically takes more than a year to develop a partner, but you only need a handful. A goal of creating one partner per sales territory per year is a very reasonable goal. And once you have a goal on paper, then you can proceed to develop a plan to reach that goal. So you then say, okay, of my customers, you can do this on a sales territory by territory basis or company as a whole, who is most likely to become a partner? And probably not all. If you got 100 customers, probably not all 100 of them. So you narrow it down to the most likely, and you will know who those most likely are for various reasons. Maybe if you got a half dozen, if you want to create one partner, half dozen is a good place to start. Then, so now we've identified what a partner is. We've defined what a partner is. We've identified their impact and how many you currently have. We created a goal for how many you'd like to have. We've identified the most likely. And now we ask ourselves, what would have to happen for each of these good customers to become a partner? And what can we do to make that happen? So create a list, a checklist. Now, so when we do this, when I do this with a client, let's say I'll give you a real example. I'm working with a B2B seller to manufacturers. So we determined that the answer to the first question, what would have to happen for a good customer to become a partner? Well, the customer would need to know several people in the selling organization, in addition to the salesperson. So the customer would want to have greater and broader relationships with you. So that's number one. Number two, the customer would want to know your senior executives. The customer would want to have purchased a wide number of things for a period of time. So it's not just, they don't just purchase one or two, there's a variety of SKUs for a period of time. So there's a history of purchasing a variety, a number of things. And we say, okay, what else? Well, a customer would need to visit our facility. Now that's a short list, 4 things in this list, but you could have much longer. I'm just using that as an example. And so we say, okay, now how can we make that happen? If the customer needs to know several people in our organization, how can we make that happen? If a customer wants to know the seller's senior executives, how can we make that happen? And so we create a checklist. This thing. So item 1 on the checklist, bring my customer service person with me on a sales call so they meet them. Okay, that's an item on the checklist. Item 2, introduce the senior vice president of sales or whatever it is, higher up, to each of my potential partners. When that, you check that off. So you create a checklist of actions you're going to take to create what we said the customer needs to have. And then you begin to do that. So you create a checklist. And by the way, these can be individual to each particular customer. Now, probably they're going to be, much of them are going to be the same for everybody, but they can be individual if it works out well for you. So you start with a group of good customers, seem most likely to move. Then you implement the checklist. That's it. So that is the sales process. You put a sales process in place to make all of the experience that you said have to happen. You make them happen. And when you have created a partner, so you do that with all of your potential, and maybe 1 or 2 will become the definition of a partner that you created. Now, when you do that and you create new partners, what you will discover is that your partners in total do about 50% of your total business. Your partners are the most loyal of all your customers. Your partners provide a regular income you can use to grow your business. You see, it really is truly one of your most powerful sales strategies. But you got to take it in hand and organize it and make it happen. Okay? Hey, I want to offer you a gift. Yeah, so I have something I call a PIC, P-I-Q, solution. A PIC solution. P-I-Q stands for problem, issue, or question. little bit of background. So when I was doing live seminars around the country, I would give people a 3x5 card and say, during the morning session, you can write down any problem, any issue, or any question that you'd like us to deal with. I'll collect them at lunch, and after lunch, we'll deal with them. And you can do this anonymously. And so I collected, over the years, bunches and bunches of PICs, P-I-Q, problem, issue, or question that people would actually write and turn in. And so what I'm doing now is organizing all of my content to be solutions for various PICs. And here's one, and I'm going to offer this to you free. It's your free PIC solution, and that is creating personal goals. So the question is, how do I create personal goals? I'm going to show you in a PIC solution. Now, a PIC solution is typically a short course, involves a little bit of online work. Maybe you listen to a podcast or read a couple articles, something like that, and then it involves what I call a thinking path, and that is a step-by-step process to help you think through the way to customize this solution to your particular circumstances. So you're going to end up, in every PIC solution, you end up with a customized version of the solution for your purposes. So I'm just going to give you one free so you get a sense of how it works, and hopefully you come back and buy bunches and bunches of PIC solutions. Okay, I'll put a link in the show notes, and feel free. Okay, that's it. We're done. Bye-bye.